Alrighty, hey there, we are live for today's Alpha Leadership Live Show. How are you? Where are you joining us from? Oh goodness, let me get all my things set up here. All right, and we should be good to go. Oh, tech. Hey, Lindsay, how's it going? So good to see you. All right. Wow. Oh, all the things. All the things. So today is a juicy topic. Speaking of juice, I am in the middle of day 2 of cleansing. So I'm like, not quite at the same level. You know, I can kind of feel it, like that detox, like the detox hangover. So crazy. So, oh, so good. Good morning. Good morning. So today is truly a juicy topic because alpha women have such a high level of empathy, And yet at the same time are quite often running into the same problem of hitting this wall internally that can either leave them extra vulnerable or completely closed off. So it's kind of like this either or. So it's so important. And as much as I talk about the wall that's blocking us from reaching that next level of success, because it's completely internal. It's that internal wall that stops all of the awesomeness that is you from getting out. Good morning, Beth. So good to see you. Stops all of the awesomeness that is you from getting out. It blocks what you desire from getting in. It is the wall that feeds the inner critic and just does not have you fully leveraging your time, your energy, all of that stuff. And this empathy piece is such a huge part of it. So that's why it is so inextricably tied to epic level leadership and why we are talking about it today. Hey, Lamorla, so good to see you. So as always, comment where you are joining from today, because we are a small world, right? We've got women in this amazing community on all the platforms. For those of you on YouTube, comment where you're watching from, right? The world is so small and so amazing. So, yes, and be sure to comment as we go through. I always save time at the end. If you have questions, I will hit the questions at the end. Yay! So good to see you. So, like I said, empathy. We are talking empathy because it is so directly tied to how you manage your time and energy. And September is Time and Energy Month. We're going to talk about the different types of empathy because of those different types of empathy is why you can have a high level of empathy and still come across as uncaring or uncompassionate or unemotional. Like, we're going to get into that. I will share the truth about empathy that no one is talking about. Because you know me, I've always got some juicy secret. Talking about the things no one else is talking about. Shannon, how are you? So good to see you. Let's see. Oh, of course, why you default to one extreme or the other, overly emotional or empathetic, or completely walled off and unemotional, because like it's easy to go to the extremes, right? And we're going to talk about why that happens and what type of empathy you need to be an influential leader and successful business owner, because that's so important, and how to manage your empathy for more time and more energy so you reach your goals with ease. Because, you got to be able to do that. You are here to go big. You are here to make a massive impact on the world. So that is why you got to show up as your best. Be the influential leader, create that impact, and of course, most importantly, managing your time and energy so you can show up in order to create that change, make that impact, do those things you're called to do, and live your purpose. If we're running on empty, no bueno, not going to work. So, you know me, right? I love the science and nerding out about all that stuff. And I can talk about the emotion, the creativity, the woo of things. So I am going to stroke both sides of your brain today. We're going to talk the logical. We're going to talk the emotional for greater understanding. So who's excited? Who is pumped for today? And please drop in the comments, like if you know you have a high level of empathy. Now, keep in mind, empathy and sensitivity are different, although a lot of overlap happens there. And just because you have a high level of empathy does not mean that you're always overly responsive to other people as well. So, hi, Pilar, so good to see you. Good morning. Good morning. So, if you're like, hey, I am a 3 on the empathy because I got lots of self-management in place, that's awesome. That doesn't mean you're not sensitive to it and you're picking it up and you're aware. And then some people, I put that out, I think last week was like, some people were like, I'm a 12 on a scale of 1 to 10 on the empathy. They're like, I feel everyone's feels. So like I said, we're going to break down too why you can experience a high level of empathy and yet still come across as kind of cold or uncaring, which is super, super, super important. Good morning. Good morning. All right. But of course, before we get into that, let me introduce myself. As always, I am Stacey Rasky, best-selling author, speaker, Iraq war veteran, badass biker chick, and most importantly, soulful success coach for alpha women leaders, helping ambitious, because ambitious is not a bad word, ambitious women founders and CEOs unleash their full potential, power, and purpose for greater visibility, authenticity, impact, and influential leadership, which is all of what we're talking about today. So, what is empathy? Really, what is it? Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. Basically, you understand deeply what they're going through. It's quite often known as feeling with someone because you're able to put yourself in their shoes and understand. But the biggest misunderstanding about empathy, and this is huge, this is the big truth piece that no one is talking about. Hey, Jessica, so good to see you. This is the big truth piece no one's talking about, is when you empathize with someone, you are not taking on their emotions or energy. Most people misconstrue that. And so quite often we think when we're creating boundaries, it's to protect ourselves from taking on the emotion and energy of others when we are sensitive and empathic. Not the case. What they are feeling, the emotions and the energy that they have, we are sensitive to and we experience that, so we feel what they're feeling, but we're not taking on their stuff. What's happening is it's a trigger to our own emotion. It is 100% our own stuff. That is what we are feeling. They are feeling what they're feeling. That triggers something inside of ourselves to where we can mirror and reflect back to them and say, oh, I understand what they're feeling because I myself have felt something similar. Even if the experiences are totally different, it's the emotion that's being triggered internally that we reflect back to them and say, oh, I understand you. The gem there is, as always, you are completely in control of that response because the trigger is yours. Most people truly do perceive empathy as something outside of their control because they think they're taking on other people's stuff. And it is totally your own stuff. It's totally yours. We see in them and feel what our own feelings. That's what's coming up. So I think you get it. I'm not going to beat that down. I am happy to answer more questions on that. Suki, yes, right. It is. It's super, super interesting because so many people don't realize that's what's happening. It's just a trigger of our own emotions by what we are feeling in them. Like we are feeling, that's the trigger. We are feeling their energy and their emotion, but it's what it's bringing up within ourselves that is the experience. So there are different types of empathy. For those of you who are in this community who are therapists, counselors, psychologists, or have your psychology degree, or just love nerding out on this stuff, you guys will probably be like, yes, she's totally talking my language. So there are three primary types of empathy when it comes to external relationships. So the first is cognitive empathy, which is basically empathy by thought, right? We cognitively understand the perspective of the other person. And because it's a logical place and it's a thought place, not necessarily feeling, most people wouldn't even assume that this is empathy, but it really is, because you can understand someone's perspective. You empathize with their experience and the perspective of it. So you understand what they are going through, but here's the catch. You can still seem unemotional or uncaring or walled off. And so you can actually empathize with them and yet still come across as cold or intimidating. Yeah. So when we're talking about leadership, whether it's with a client, our family, our team, the people that we are here to lead, that's really, really, really important. Hi, Jennifer. How's it going? So that's important to know. Now, the next is emotional empathy. And this is kind of the one we tend to understand as empathy. And that's why, I brought that up in understanding the emotions that get triggered in the understanding, even thinking about the cognitive empathy, right? You understand their perspective because you're able to put yourself in their shoes, but you can only do that based off of your own experiences. So that is why what is going on with them is a trigger of our own things. To say, oh, okay, I can put myself in their shoes because I've had something similar, or a situation that created a similar feeling or a similar experience, right? So emotional empathy is quite literally just that. You can feel the other person's emotions alongside them, right? It's almost like as if you caught their emotions, but you did not. You only caught their emotions because it's triggering inside of you a similar feeling. So that's the catch. That's the catch. You are still feeling your own emotions. It's your stuff, your experiences, not theirs, but you are actually lowering yourself down to feeling alongside them. And this is kind of the catch as well to the emotional empathy. I see this so often, especially with high empathy entrepreneurs, right? The highly sensitive entrepreneurs, where anytime someone in their world is feeling something, they allow themselves to get pulled down to the other people's emotional level. And that's not helping either of us, right? Like if you're the leader, you've got to stay in that leader place, right? You staying high vibe does not mean you don't resonate with them, that you don't understand, that you don't empathize. But if you go down to their level, how can you help them get out, right? And I used to do this all the time. Every time I felt someone else's pain, I was like, oh, and I would be down there with them, crying along with them, feeling low with them. Misery loves company. And it was my framework in programming and understanding was I had to go down to their level and feel their pain with them, which was really my own pain, in order for them to know that I understood. Huge, huge difference. Huge difference. So It's the thing with the emotional empathy. It's really, really good because, high emotional intelligence means you can understand another person's emotions. But the challenge is when we're stuck in the emotional empathy all the time, this is where it's bad. And because it's easy to get overwhelmed by all of what you're feeling and actually unable to respond. You can't help them, right? Oh, Shanna. Yeah, I had to keep my cool the other day when I had a client cry on our Zoom call. Exactly. Like, it's okay for us to hold space, especially for those of us who are in the transformation industry, right? Even just being leaders in general, to hold space, allow someone to feel their feelings. We don't have to diminish or avoid or soothe them. We can hold space and then allow them to feel what they feel. And then on the other side, and not go down to their level. And you know what I mean? I'm talking about vibration or energetically going down to the lower level of, sadness or pain versus joy or peace up here. But that you're able to hold space, and then when they're done, then you're able to be constructive and supportive, which is getting into my next empathy, the compassionate empathy, where you're able to be that leader and guide them to appropriate action to solve the problem or ease the pain or whatever it is, right? But that a lot of us who struggle with the emotional empathy, the wall we flip on sends us over to the cognitive empathy, right? So, right, we put the wall up that separates the emotional and the logical. The wall is up. I cannot, I'm overwhelmed with emotion. So let me put the wall up and just be in cognitive. Let me be logical. Let me be a logical leader and say, and that's why we can easily come across in that place where it seems like we're uncaring. And we don't mean to be, because like I said, alpha women are some of the most sensitive, warm, empathetic, authentic, amazing, amazing women. But if the wall goes up, we're doing it to avoid the emotional overload and shutdown. And drop in the comments if you're like, oh, yep, I've been told that. Like, I know I do the cognitive empathy. If you're like, oh my gosh, I've done the emotional empathy to the point of shutdown, or I've been overrun by feeling emotions triggered by other people before. If you're like, I'm so high empathy, this is huge for me. Drop that in the comments. So the last empathy, like I said, is compassionate empathy. This is actual, constructive, amazing, beautiful empathy, right? Where you're able to feel what someone else feels, understand their perspective, and also stay up here and lead them into making change, getting help, even just holding space so they can feel better, whatever that needs to be. But you hold yourself in the high vibration and stay up here, right? Stay anchored in you versus giving yourself and your power away to them, right? Which really, you're giving yourself and your power away to your emotions and allowing that trigger, them to be your trigger that pulls you in that direction. So, because people who need empathy, they don't just need you to understand, right? The cognitive empathy, and they don't need you to just feel their pain with them, right? Because sometimes like breaking down with them isn't necessarily helpful either, because that can just actually make it worse. They need you to understand, to sympathize, but then also help them to take action to resolve the problem, whatever that is, right? That's compassionate empathy, and that is being an influential leader. You're holding that space. You're holding space for them to feel what they need to feel. You feel it. You're able to understand them and their perspective, and you're able to hold space in a way that's like, okay, now what do we do next to solve the problem, ease the pain, work through whatever the trigger or the thing is that's coming up, whatever that is, right? And like I said, alpha women have this extremely high level of empathy, but can often default to one extreme or the other, right? Where many of us have been taught to stay more in the masculine energy. So the cognitive space, right? The cognitive empathy. So it's why we can come across as cold or having that wall where people say, hey, you're kind of unemotional or inauthentic or inaccessible or intimidating. But then if we let the wall down, it's the extreme opposite. Then we're overly sensitive to the emotion and the energy of others, right? So the wall has been this layer of protection that we've put in place, but unfortunately it's all or nothing. It's on or it's off. That's it. And that wall that we've learned to put around our hearts and our souls, to protect us from hurt, is also a very effective tool that has allowed us to have high performance, high achievement, and get results. We've been very successful while at the same time having this wall that's actually blocking us from what we desire. But the wall comes from a lack of boundaries and coming from hurt or pain or trauma as a child. And there's a full spectrum here. I'm not getting into all of the details, but the most successful women that I know have some of the biggest walls they've had to work through and break down, or still have some of the biggest walls because they come from trauma. I mean, just think of it. The best example I know, Oprah Winfrey. I mean, she came from a shit ton of trauma and has been able to use that and transmute that into this beautiful power to help inspire and empower and uplift others, right? That is so alpha, like authentic, inspired alpha. So beautiful. Oh, Beth, yes, you really like the idea of holding space without getting too emotional. The compassionate energy. Yes, the compassionate energy, compassionate empathy. And I mean, even when I'm holding space up here, I may still feel emotions coming up. I may still cry a little bit, feel what they're feeling, experience them with them, but I'm not overwhelmed by it. I'm able to stay in a high vibe space and still be experiencing peace and joy at the same time. Oh, yes, Shanna, I felt her frustration, but I had to do my best to help her move forward and work through the issue. Oh, you're resonating with all of this. That's so good. I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing. So, like I said, that wall blocks you from that next level of success, and it feeds your inner critic. And I've been talking about this wall a lot because this wall comes into our time and energy management too. The biggest symptom of this internal wall, this big block, the block we feel, the invisible ceiling, the upper limit on our abundance capacity, the biggest symptom of that is control. Hello, alpha women. Who's got control issues? Drop it in the comments if you're like, yep. Some type of control issue. And if you've been following me for a while, I've shared a lot of really subtle control issues too. Some really subtle control issues like hustle. There's a control issue. Pleasure, not giving ourselves permission to experience pleasure, joy, all that stuff. So permission, that's a control issue. Pleasure is a control issue, not celebrating and enjoying all the things that we desire. Oh yeah, we've got some subtle, sneaky, really effed up ways we engage in control issues, especially with ourselves. Alpha women will gaslight themselves like crazy. We do it. That's why I do what I do when working with my clients. We work through that stuff, and I'll share with you the 4 key things to focus on to break through the wall. Haha, yes, control issues. Everybody's like, yeah, girl, you're talking, preaching to the choir here. Right. All got the control issues. And keep in mind, like when I talk about the energetics piece too, that wall is designed to create safety. And safety is the masculine energy. So the wall is actually masculine energy protecting our feminine energy, our emotion behind it. So hopefully now you can start seeing this picture between the empathy, the emotion, and then the masculine energy is the cognitive, the logical, the safety, right? Why this empathy stuff I'm talking about today is another symptom of that wall. And honestly, we have the wall up or we have the wall down, right? Like I said, it's all or nothing. And that masculine energy is designed to protect the feminine. So, Beth, yes, I like to hold, I feel like I hold myself back more than any external source or person. Absolutely. I talk about it all the time. No one holds us back except ourselves. Nothing, truly nothing. We are the gatekeeper to our own success. But here's the thing. There's all these stories and all these things, all this programming running in the background. And the key is making the choice to do the shift and the pivot. And because it feels overwhelming because it's so old, because we're talking, childhood worthiness wounds, we're talking inner child, we're talking balancing masculine, feminine, we're talking about reprogramming these stories that are so old. It feels overwhelming because we've been engaging in these things for, 30 years, 45 years, 65 years, however long. It feels like it's a lot, but it's not. It's not. Having the right system and the right methodology and the right support, a few shifts changes everything. A few shifts changes everything. And it really opens things up right away to getting the results and experiencing what you desire. So, what is the fix to eliminating the wall, right? To shifting into the compassionate empathy? Balance, right? I mean, at the root, everything I'm always talking about, right? Balancing masculine, feminine, balancing creativity and strategy, or, pleasure and play with getting some work done, right? Being and doing, like we're balancing everything. It's all about balance. So being that influential leader who allows her next level of success with ease is in the place of balance and having compassionate empathy. So what are those steps? Number one, you already know, boundaries. Boundaries are the energetic layer of protection and safety that must be in place before beginning to break down the walls. It's why it's all or nothing. But the walls were created for a reason, right? It was our strategy for safety and protecting our heart and our soul from pain, from hurt, from life. There's a reason we have a wall. It's not a bad thing. It's just that's the toolkit we had. Now we got to revamp the toolkit. Boundaries must be in place first before you start working at dismantling the walls. Got to be safe. Otherwise, one thing and boop, the safety alarm goes off in our primitive brain and we go back to the old habit. So number two, I already just teasered, right? The toolkit. We've got to upgrade the self-management toolkit. And it's all done through shifting the relationship with you. And that also helps you to better manage your emotions. Because again, a lot of alpha women, we've learned to ignore some of our emotions, right? We avoid time with ourselves. And so there's a lot of stuff deep down that we bury down and stuff behind the wall and compartmentalize that we just ignore. And when the wall's down, all of that shit comes up. Right? So we got to manage the emotions, giving ourselves permission to feel, shifting the relationship with you. Because anytime we're in the all or nothing or in the extremes, it just means there's a need for more inner work and more self-management, right? And again, self-management doesn't mean you're putting a governor on yourself. You're actually unleashing your truth and your power. That's the difference. It's more self-mastery, but that's kind of overused right now. So, number three, creating internal safety. Right? Like I was saying, the wall was designed to create that safety. And if you're continually stepping outside of your comfort zone, it's triggering unsafe. And anytime you start making changes to any of the old programming, it triggers unsafe, inner child freaking out, So you make some forward momentum. And if you feel like something happens and then you're taking however many steps back, which is actually a lie, but it feels like it, that wall goes back up and we feel like we go backwards in our sabotage cycle when the unsafe trigger goes off. So that before you start making really big changes, you've got to do some of that internal work to create safety. Boundaries are a part of that, but there's also some other layers to creating internal safety for your inner child. And it's healing the worthiness wounds around your inner child as well. So there's a couple layers in there. Some of the money and abundance stuff is around there too, in that internal safety. And number 4, the last one, is balancing your energy. I mentioned it a few times, right? The masculine and the feminine energy. You've got to embody and embrace more of the feminine energy to balance out the masculine. The masculine energy is awesome. It creates the safety. It helps to hold the boundaries. That's where our discipline comes from. But we've got to have more of the feminine energy for the trust and the authenticity and the ease and the release and the receive, right? We got to have a balance of all of that stuff. Otherwise, no bueno. So let's see. Oh, Suki, I have no boundaries and I'm really struggling on figuring out how to put them in place. I would love to chat with you. That is such an important piece of what I do. And because that is the one element that alpha women struggle with the most. They think they have good boundaries. Sometimes they just straight up know they don't. But it's understanding that the boundaries we need are what we need in our relationship with ourselves. Absolutely need in our relationship with ourselves. And that's why we're creating that internal safety by healing our inner child and those deep inner worthiness wounds, because those are those stories and the programming and that relationship with ourself that create our boundaries or our lack of boundaries. So there's multiple layers to it. We can't just go in and say, okay, woohoo, boundaries, let's do it. Because no matter how clear you get on them, we're not going to hold to them if we're triggering unsafe, such as if I hold to a boundary, now I might be rejected from the people that help me feel safe, right? So there's a lot of different layers in there. Oh, Robin, yes, worthiness is such a tough one, right? That is such an important piece of the pie. And the more you focus your time and energy and attention on the things that fill your cup, your enoughness cup, your energy cup, your worthiness cup, the beautiful thing that is called self-love, the more you work on that. That's why I always talk about the relationship with you is the source of everything that you desire, is the answer to everything. It's all about that relationship with you, that self-love piece for the worthiness. Oh, Lamorla, yes, trust and authenticity, more of that beautiful, juicy, divine, feminine energy to just balance out the awesomeness that is already us, right? The beautiful alpha woman. Elevating to that next level of authenticity and influential leadership truly does come from breaking down that wall, letting in more of that beautiful divine feminine, and letting go of some of that the control issues. That is literally the symptom. The control issues are the symptom of not having all of those 4 things that I just mentioned in place. So, all right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today was such a fun and juicy topic, always. And as always, if you are in that place that you're like, okay, Stacey, I need your help to get clear on this, implement this, allow this to happen, and allow it all to be quick and hit the easy button, I am happy to chat with you. Send me that message in Messenger and I will follow up with a few of you already who are like, okay, asking those questions. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, we'll have the link in the comments on how to send me that message and get connected. And of course, like and subscribe if you enjoyed today's video. We will be back same time next week, as always, for another amazing Alpha Leadership Live show. And remember, as always, you are enough. Thank you so much for joining me today and have a fantastic week. Oh, yay. Hi, Alice.